May 17th is the big day, in fact, where the public sac will no longer be allowed in the city of Montreal. This is going to have serious consequences for local journalism. It could result in the disappearance of local media. Metro Media, which is the owner of Journal Métro, alongside 20 other local papers, making the announcement this week that the death of public sac could mean the death of a whole lot more. Of course, this municipal bylaw, which targeted the public sac, but you know what? A whole bunch of other stuff was distributed along with those flyers to get you deals on grapes and and chicken breast and all that other stuff. Could mean the loss of a lot of jobs in newsrooms in Montreal and Quebec. Andrew Mulé joins us now in studio. He's the CEO of Metro Media. Andrew, thanks for coming in.
Thanks very much for having me.
So what does May 17th mean for you and Metro Media?
I mean, it's a fundamental shift in our business in a case like Metro Lachine, we've been around for 90 years, being distributed door to door. It means that we're no longer allowed to be door to door. It means that we're a business that needs to completely restructure, capture our audience in a completely different way, go down the digital path, which, we're completely prepared to do. But it means really from month to month, an 80% loss in revenues from there, which means it's a massive culture change coming way too quick for a business that's, historically already fragile.
But the bylaw doesn't ban newspapers. It bans the public sac. So tell our listeners why that is a de facto ban on newspapers.
Well, public sac historically has always been an ally to distribution of newspapers. It's been a low-cost, bundled medium to distribute. And so now we're faced with, the alternative, which is Canada Post, which is much more expensive. In our case, unaffordable.
What's the cost difference if you went to the Canada Post model?
In our case, it's 4.5 times the price.
Which means there's no business model that could support that.
Definitely not.
Okay, so then you're the CEO of Metro Media, so the CEO has got to do these tough decisions. Mm-hmm. So it's happening. What are the tough decisions that you can tell us right now will have to be made because of this bylaw?
The bylaw, though, we saw it coming, right, mm-hmm. Elias? So ultimately, what we're facing in the next month, we had a lot of proactive solutions that we proposed to the city. So at this stage, we didn't see we saw the bylaw coming, 24 months ago. No, that's not true. 18 months ago, we really got serious. And so we proposed a bunch of solutions through a committee that created a report. It was commissioned by the city, as a matter mm-hmm. of fact. And so the bylaw, we supported the bylaw. We said, okay, no problem. Let's the public sac, we get it. Time to reduce. Let's go. We're, our media is very pro-environment. We want to work with our readers, etc. But we said, however, if you want us to do a culture change quickly, you don't just leave us abandoned on the corner of the street. You're going to have to support us through this, right? So we're going to go and invest a lot on our digital transformation, mm-hmm. which we did. We're at $3.5 million in the last couple of years. We created an ecosystem because we understand fundamentally how the boroughs of Montreal work, what are effective communication tools, what citizens want. We commissioned a study with Google News. That we spent a ton of money understanding exactly what Montrealers were looking for in their communities. And so we deployed it, we spent it. And now here we are. And what we said to the city, we had a lot of confidence in the city. We said, hey, we're going to go do this. We're going to do it seriously, but you're going to have to invest in local media.
I thought they had said, well, we're going to have a fund. We're going to help you with the transition.
Well, they said a lot of things, Elias, right? So saying and then doing are two completely different things. And so if you're hearing me today, it's because empty promises at this stage can't pay for a business. And what we've been grassroots journalism for, in some cases, 90 years. Journal Rosemont is founded by Pelado 7 years ago. So we have a nice history in what we do. And if we want to continue to make our communities shine in Montreal, well, local media is an excellent avenue to do it. And so what we're asking for at this stage is not even Andrew's asking for this. An independent committee was commissioned with an instruction manual to the city. It says, hey, if you cancel public sac, this is what you need to do in order to make sure local journalism doesn't die along with public sac.
So what could they do?
So, for example, in November, they deployed an emergency fund for local journalism. And that was supposed to be, hey, we realize digital transformation is expensive. Well, here's a boost to help you start doing it. Okay, great. In our case, it was different. The damage was done when they announced the end of the public sack, and 50% of my readers, 50% of my advertisers bailed along with the announcement. So when I got that first funding, it was, if I don't have this money, we can't proceed. It was very different. We applied it to continue doing the core mission. But the second and most important pillar of the recommendation was you need to engage and partner in a permanent fashion with local media. Right? Stop investing in foreign businesses. Start supporting the people that have their boots on the ground in your communities, that are defending the rights of citizens in Montreal, that are keeping the mayors and the councillors in check, making sure that the rights of the citizens are respected. That's really what we do, and they've always used us as a communication tool. Public notices, communication. So what changed now? Right? At this stage here, it's talking about trying to mobilize the city to do something is challenging.
So, and we're with Andrew Mulé, CEO of Metro Media. We're talking about the public sack ban and how that will affect local journalism. So it seems to me that the mayor and Projet Montreal has used the public sack almost theatrically. I remember the press conference where they lined up the truck in the background filled with the public sacks, right? And it was, it was quite jarring, right? Because this is not a mayor known for those types of stunts, but there she was pulling this stunt. Do you feel now they've gone so far on making public sack enemy number one that they're pushed into a corner where they can't help you out? Because the last thing they want to see is any type of delivery, even if it doesn't come in a plastic bag. They don't want to see any type of door-to-door delivery.
I mean, yesterday I get an email from the communication director of Canada Post that really says, don't worry, Montrealers, this ban's coming in place on the 17th, but you're going to get everything anyway, so no big deal, right? And what they're referring to is the fact that public sack is going to go through the mail, and they're going to reach just as many Montrealers starting May 17th as well. And I thought that the timing was incredible, because here I am doing a turn, and they decided to do it because I started to mention the fact that Canada Post is an effective means to distribute, which is exactly how public sack is going to make it to the mailboxes. So in the end, was the strategy a good one to essentially, they wanted to kill flyers so that the recycling centers suddenly weren't so overloaded? Yeah. They didn't succeed. But at the same time, now they're killing local journalism. Was that the way we saw democracy going forward? I don't know. I don't think so.
So the public sack is going to continue as a sort of paper-only fold-out thing that Canada Post will deliver, and now the local journalism that used to be with it?
No longer.
No longer.
Exactly.
How is this a good? How is that a good decision?
Well, that's the situation I find myself. It's a bit. I'm not out writing to the public because we haven't really worked hard to try to overcome this challenge. I could have been crying in a corner like a baby about this. No, we said, you know what, we're going to invest. We're going to proceed. We're going to trust. Right, we're going to trust the people that have talked to us through this whole process. And here we find ourselves that is ultimately that trust, I think, was misplaced. Should we have continued on the digital mission? I think so. I think what we do is very important. I think that fundamentally we get a lot of good out of the work that we do. I think that we should be allowed to proceed. I think it's incredibly ironic that the city is the one that's causing us the largest problems at this stage, because I think that we support citizens in the city in an important way.
Yeah. And so come May 17th, public sack will continue to be distributed thanks to Canada Post, and the newspapers, the local newspapers, will not. Will you have to make cuts to the number of journalists you employ?
Ultimately, if the second pillar of what we're talking about in the recommendation doesn't actually get deployed, we're going to have to move forward towards cuts. It's just not sustainable when 80% of your revenue streams and your roadmap of what you're doing gets cut from you from month to month. It's impossible. But, the good news, one of the things we talk a lot about, the dire parts of this stuff, I don't want to cut in my journalism team. As a matter of fact, for 5 years, all I've done was grow that team, right? Where everyone else is cutting. Let's talk about all the other major medias in Quebec. I'm trying to maintain as much as possible, because I understand that's at the heart of what we do. Without the guys, the boots on the ground, listening to the community, we're really nothing. So ultimately, for me, this is a last resort of what we're talking about. We don't want to be where we're at. And on our roadmap, we shouldn't be where we're at. It was sustainable through a transition period, a reasonable period.
I get the digital transformation. I'm all on board. I'm surrounded by screens. But to me, the local newspaper was always my little escape where I would take 5 minutes to go through the local paper and read, and it was the only thing. Like all the other news, right? Like, the big city news and national news and all that. That's all happening on screens for me. And I'm not going back to holding a traditional newspaper in that sense for that type of news. But local news was always different. It seemed like it was made for that type of distribution.
I think we've created a whole toolbox that would be impressive for Montrealers. So for me, I look at our digital shift. We're sort of responding to, like I told you, a Google study that was commissioned that basically told us Montrealers are looking for an anchor in their community, but about 95% of respondents, and it was a huge study of $300,000 investment in the study, they said we're looking to be anchored. We want something that helps us guide in our day-to-day life what's happening in society, right? So for us, we see that we've implemented this stuff, and we've seen from going from 0 to 60,000 subscribers, we've seen our audience go up by 42%. We know for a fact that there's a digital version of what we do. We just need to be able to impose the culture change on society, and you can't do it in 6 months.
So at the end of the day, you'd be open to stopping door-to-door distribution, just not in the time frame.
That's exactly what I've been saying for over a year. Ultimately, we can't do these things rapidly. Just you can see other media examples in Quebec, La Presse, for example. They quit printing in 2016. They had their first successful year in 2020.
Yeah,
guys. Let's and this is a Quebec empire that was well backed. Like, let's just call a spade a spade. If what I can't have today is the city of Montreal working against what I'm doing for Montrealers. That doesn't work. Ultimately, that's really what we're talking about. And look at the English side of the city. Yeah. We've only seen journalists peel off less local coverage. Is that good for society? And what we see is there's a huge gap missing in the west of the island because nobody's on the ground covering that part of the city. Is that good? I don't think so.
We'll see if the city of Montreal heeds your calls, Andrew.
I hope so.
Thanks very much for coming in. I know one of the reasons you came in. You're passionate about this, and I appreciate you having.
Thank you very much, Elias.
That's Andrew Mulé, CEO of Métro Media.